Guwon was a heartless demon whose job was to ruin human lives through deadly contracts. However, everything changes when his powers accidentally get transferred to a hot girl. Now he starts chasing her everywhere but ends up falling in love with her. The story begins with a demon approaching a starving fisherman who is desperate to catch some fish. Using his powers, the demon reveals all the fish nearby and even gives the largest one to him for free. But in return, the demon asks to make a 10-year-long contract. During this time, the fisherman's wish, that is, not to starve, will be granted, but after 10 years, he will die and go to hell. Without thinking much, the fisherman signs the contract, and the demon goes his separate way. In the present times, a girl named Dohee is called on stage to receive the most successful CEO award. Afterward, she heads to work but gets interrupted by a call from Chonsuk, the chairperson of their company, asking Dohee if she's on her way to the blind date. When Dohee tries turning it down, Chonsuk threatens to cancel her medical checkup, leaving Dohee no choice but to play along. Elsewhere, the boss of a criminal gang is enjoying his time in a sauna when, unexpectedly, the same demon, named Guwon, appears in front of him, letting him know that the time of his contract is over. The boss tries to retaliate but fails and ultimately dies due to heart failure. Meanwhile, Dohee enters the restaurant and gets informed that it's booked by a single person. Figuring that it must be her blind date, she goes and sits across the table from him. Shockingly, that person turns out to be Guwon, who starts the conversation by talking rudely to her, telling Dohee to go somewhere else, as he booked the whole place for himself. However, she refuses to leave and remains seated, continuing the awkward atmosphere surrounding them. Then, the two of them exchange business cards, and Guwon is informed by Dohee about the blind date. This comes as a surprise to him, making Dohee wonder if he wasn't informed beforehand. Nevertheless, she eventually gets bored and decides to leave, but just then, the thugs of that criminal gang show up and push a waiter, sending a cake flying towards her. In the nick of time, Guwon pushes her away and catches the cake all while rizzing her up with his moves. Flustered, Dohee heads to the bathroom while Guwon decides to enjoy the cake, only for it to get ruined by the thugs who saw him taking their boss's life. This results in a fight breaking out, and to start things off, Guwon makes one of the men disappear and reappear in the newspaper he's holding using his powers. Similarly, he then beats up the others using the same newspaper and makes them disappear as well. Once he's done, Dohee returns with a better mood than before, but after hearing him spit some rude stuff again, she loses interest and leaves. On her way back, she thinks of the Mirae Group, the company Chonsuk owns, and remembers the birthday party for Chonsuk that took place last year. The guest list consisted of her eldest son, Sukmin, her daughter-in-law, Sarah, her second child, Suhana, and her nephew, Seokun. The last one to arrive was Dohee, who isn't related to any of them but is fully aware of their power struggle to claim the Mirae Group. Sadly, her moment of reminiscing is interrupted by an unknown caller who claims to be the head of finance at Mirae Group. He suggests meeting up since he has an important piece of information that has the power to make her the chairwoman of Mirae Group. Following that, Dohee receives a message from Cheon-suk and rushes to the hospital. Seeing Cheon-suk lying on the bed with her eyes closed, Dohee believes she passed away and starts crying, only for Cheon-suk to wake up from sleep moments after. She then surprises Dohee with a birthday cake, and after a short conversation about her blind date, Dohee realizes that she went on a date with the wrong guy. Simultaneously, her assistant appears, saying that the matchmaker got the hotel name wrong. On the other hand, Guwon arrives at the practice of a stage show and receives a call from Dohee's assistant, apologizing for the misunderstanding. But he doesn't give them any attention and cuts the call. At the same time, the head of finance, who called Dohee earlier, gets assassinated. Guwon, who is now at his office, gets visited by his human companions, and the two of them start mocking each other. Annoyed, they get told by Guwon how they both are defective, and he follows it by praising himself instead. Dohee, after leaving the hospital, visits the beach, remembers the moments she spent there with her dead parents, while Guwon sits on top of a clock tower, thinking how it's awfully quiet today. After the sun sets, Dohee decides to leave and calls a ride-hailing service. But after getting in the car, she notices that they are going off-route, and the driver seems to have injuries on his neck. Ultimately, he stops the car and tries to attack Dohee, but she somehow manages to get away. At the same time, Guwon hears her cries for help and shows up right in front of her. Knowing that it's the same guy from before, Dohee asks for his help. While he agrees to help her out, Guwon tells Dohee to make a deal with him first. Once she agrees, Guwon heads to deal with that guy while Dohee runs towards a car to escape. But before she gets the chance to leave, the body of that criminal comes crashing on the windshield. Now that he's taken care of, Guwon walks towards the car, only to find Dohee behind guardrails. To help her, he extends his hand, but as soon as their hands touch, the symbol on his hand starts to shine. Simultaneously, the criminal from before comes speeding towards them in the car, and when Guwon tries using his powers, nothing happens. As a last resort, the two of them jump and fall into the ocean. In order to help Guwon out, Dohee grabs his hand once again, and this time, the symbol completely disappears and reappears on Dohee's hand. Before long, she also loses consciousness and wakes up on land the next day with Guwon standing next to her, puzzled about his missing symbol. He then notices Dohee's arm and finds out that it was transferred to her. While holding her hand, Guwon manages to use his powers again, but that puts strain on Dohee, causing her to lose consciousness once again. Later that day, she wakes up in a hospital bed with Guwon next to her, who seems to be acting quite nicely with her. As soon as she notices the symbol on her arm, Dohee begins to panic and decides to laser it off, but gets told not to by Guwon. Their conversation gets interrupted when the police officers arrive and take their statement. Simultaneously, Guwon also receives a reminder on his phone regarding a contract expiration and decides to leave. But before that, he heads to his office and finds Bakyu reading one of his books, which allows him to learn that demons can lose their life if they fail to make new deals or meet the contract expiration date. After taking it back, Guwon locks away the book and asks Bakyu to find everything he can about Dohee. Moreover, he tries testing his powers by telling Bakyu to splash water on him, and as expected, the powers don't work and he ends up getting drenched. Following that, Guwon approaches one of the guys whose contract is about to expire, but just like everyone else, that person tries to retaliate. Knowing that he doesn't have his powers, Guwon tries fighting a few of them, but after realizing that it's too much for him without his powers, he escapes through the window for the time being and promises to come for him later. Elsewhere, Dohee finds out that the article written against her company has brought the stocks down by 10% and remembers that the criminal from before mentioned Cheon-suk's name. On the other hand, the criminal takes off his face mask and looks at the pictures of Dohee hung in his room. To remove any doubts, Dohee heads to meet Cheon-suk, who has now been discharged from the hospital. Dohee then asks if she's hiding something from her, but Cheon-suk disagrees, and Dohee believes her since she's the only person she trusts. Back at the office, Guwon gets informed about Dohee, including the fact that she was adopted by Cheon-suk and how her late father founded one of Mirae Group's parent companies with Cheon-suk. Furthermore, Dohee founded a dessert company during her college days, which went on to become Mirae F&B. Elsewhere, Suhana is trying out new clothes while discussing the loss faced by Dohee's company, unaware that she's sitting behind her. After revealing her presence, Dohee shows Suhana some private photos of her that were taken in secrecy. But before she gets the chance to say anything further, a call from Guwon interrupts her, asking Dohee to meet up as he's been feeling unwell ever since the incident. After deciding on a meetup spot, she cuts the line and continues the conversation by blackmailing Suhana. She starts by explaining that once her pictures are publicized, the brand image of Suhana's company will hit rock bottom and Cheon-suk will be very disappointed. Scared, Suhana tells her not to do any of it, and Dohee agrees, only if Suhana somehow fixes the mess she created by posting that article. Meanwhile, another person is visited by Guwon, and this time, he is there to strike a deal. But just as that person is about to sign the contract, he remembers his past life, where he made a contract with Guwon and was sent to hell. Knowing the consequences, that guy loses his cool and starts choking Guwon for leading him astray. That night, Guwon and Dohee met up at the decided spot, where she handed him some money for the food she had eaten during the blind date. Dohee then asks about the deal he wanted to make and gets told by Guwon that there's no need for that, as he wants her help with something else. With that, he makes Dohee go on a ride with him, and after holding her hand to use his powers, he heads to the guy with the expiring contract. Using his powers, he manages to eliminate that person, hence completing his job. Once that's done, he takes her to a suspicious-looking parking lot, making her believe that he's about to get down to business. But to Dohee's disappointment, all he does is ask to go on a walk by the riverside. After getting close enough to the river, he throws her in and jumps after her in an attempt to recreate the scene from before and get back his powers. But his plan fails miserably, and she returns to the surface. Furious, Dohee yells at him for trying to drown her twice and questions the reason he didn't tell her beforehand. Guwon admits that she wouldn't have agreed if he did, prompting Dohee to storm off in anger. On her way back home, Dohee finds out about the death of Mirae's finance head, and while she was focused on that, a biker speeds past and attempts to throw acid on her. Fortunately, Guwon appears yet again to protect her. He then uses his powers to heal the wounds and confesses to being an otherworldly entity, in other words, a demon. The two of them then go to the police station to file a report. And, judging by the recent events, Dohee is told by the detective that she's being targeted. On the way home, Guwon confronts Dohee for being so careless that her actions could have burned his symbol as well. Upon hearing this, Dohee comments on how the two of them are on the same boat now and suggests that he become her bodyguard. But Guwon instantly rejects the idea and drops her home. Meanwhile, the criminal returns to his hideout, frustrated over failing the mission. Following that, Guwon shows up at his office and tells Bakyu about the bodyguard plan, which he seems to like. However, Guwon disagrees, saying that all he wishes is to live a peaceful life, away from all the drama. Meanwhile, Dohee sees the news of that finance head's death on the news and calls Cheon-suk, wondering if she knows of it. But Cheon-suk advises her to worry about her own company and leave the other stuff to her. The following day, Guwon figures that he could get his symbol back if the same conditions as that day are met, but the conversation gets interrupted when he notices his finger burning out of nowhere. Panicked, they realize that it must be due to his not doing his job as a demon properly. This prompts him to instantly give Dohee a call, letting her know that he will be coming over. After arriving at her place, he finally agrees to become her bodyguard, but decides to keep the reason a secret when she asks about it. With that being said, Guwon takes her to the clock tower in order to find people willing to make contracts. During his hunt, Guwon's finger starts burning again, and he heads to a hospital to extinguish it, only to witness a father discussing her child's worsening condition with a doctor. Upon hearing that, Guwon gives the mother of that child a visit, letting her know of the contract that could allow the child to live for 10 years. In the midst of their talks, the condition of the kid starts worsening, but using his powers, Guwon manages to stabilize her for the time being. At the same time, more of Guwon's fingers start burning, prompting him to rush the contract signing process. Ultimately, the mother agrees to sign the contract, all while knowing the consequences. Once that's done, the two of them head out, and Dohee confronts Guwon for exploiting people's misfortune. When Guwon replies by saying that he saves people, Dohee questions if that child can be happy after finding out the sacrifice her mother had to make. In the end, she decides not to use him as a bodyguard since she doesn't want to exploit others' misfortunes. Elsewhere, Cheon-suk yells at an unknown person for eliminating people, warning them that they will pay for it, a statement that makes that person furious. After returning to his office, Guwon celebrates the contract by eating a cake and gets informed of all the details related to the day he lost the symbol, including the fact that it was a full moon, which means he will have to wait 28 days for it to happen again. Later that day, Guwon remembers Dohee's words and pays a visit to that kid in the hospital. He asks for her wish and finds out that the kid doesn't want her parents to suffer because of her, making Guwon realize his mistake. Later that day, Dohee is having a meeting at a restaurant and witnesses the same kid celebrating her birthday with her family. After heading back to her office, she finds Guwon waiting for him in the rain and decides to hire him as a bodyguard once again. He is then taken to the office and given a few books related to self-defense by Dohee's secretary. Once the day ends, he drives her home and, along the way, lets Dohee know that he was once a human who was chosen to become a demon. At the same time, she realizes that Cheon-suk is not picking up her call and decides to visit her. At her house, she finds Cheon-suk sitting in the garden, but after taking a closer look, Dohee realizes that Cheon-suk is not responding to her anymore and has lost her life. Terrified, Dohee begs Guwon to make a contract, but gets told that he cannot bring the dead back to life. The following morning, a funeral is held, which is attended by everyone, including Dohee. This reminds her of her parents' funeral when Cheon-suk visited her for the first time. Seo-kun then comes up to Dohee, hoping to console her, but gets interrupted by Suhana, who reminds Dohee of her place in the family, adding the fact that she doesn't have Cheon-suk's protection anymore. Meanwhile, the others already start treating the eldest son, Sukmin, as the new chairman, and seeing them smile so casually, she leaves and heads to the garden. While reminiscing, Dohee comes across Sukmin's son and tells him not to smoke the fruity-flavored cigarette as Cheon-suk didn't like it. But he refuses, saying that she is no longer here and reminding Dohee of the power he will be receiving after his father becomes the new chairman. Frustrated, she throws his cigarette on the floor, and before things accelerate further, Guwon appears, forcing Sukmin's son to leave. Following that, Guwon informs Dohee that people wear black to funerals in order to prevent the soul of the deceased from recognizing and following them. Hearing this, Dohee regrets wearing black and mentions how Cheon-suk must be lonely right now, prompting Guwon to grab her hand and change her dress to white using his powers. Afterward, an official family meeting is held with the detectives, who inform everyone that Cheon-suk took a medicine named diclofenac before her death. Surprised, Dohee realizes that Cheon-suk would never eat it willingly since she's allergic to it, and informs the detective that everyone in the room was aware of her allergies, making everyone an accomplice. Moreover, she figures that the head of finance must have had proof of someone's wrongdoing and believes that the same person must have eliminated Cheon-suk as well. But for the time being, Sukmin decides to call it a death by heart attack as he doesn't want to spread rumors about the Mirae Group. However, this doesn't sit right with Dohee, and she exposes the truth of Cheon-suk's murder to the guests. Following that, Cheon-suk's lawyer gathers everyone to read her will, and as everyone sits hopeful to become the next chairman, the lawyer announces that Cheon-suk has decided to give all her assets to none other than Dohee. Lastly, this deal will only last if Dohee marries a man in less than a year after Cheon-suk's demise. Upon hearing this, all the family members lose their cool and start pressing Dohee to not accept it. However, she lets everyone know that the only way to stop her is by taking her life and promises to expose the truth, even if it means shaking hands with a demon. After that, she walks up to Guwon and proposes by trying to give him an engagement ring. However, he just stands there, doing nothing, which makes her realize that he's not going to accept it. Annoyed, she walks away, and he follows her, telling Guwon that he is her bodyguard and likes to keep his work and personal life separate. Meanwhile, the other siblings meet up, and Suhana suggests making up lies to take the assets away from Dohee, but Sukmin says that it's not possible, as everything has already been dealt with legally. Dohee is also on her way home with Guwon, and this time, she sits in the back seat instead of the passenger seat. Moreover, she tells Guwon not to explain anything regarding why he turned down her offer since she's not interested. After reaching her place, Dohee reassures him that what happened won't get in the way of their current relationship. However, when Guwon follows her to her apartment, he overhears Dohee saying some pretty brutal stuff about him, leaving him no choice but to flee. Sometime later, Seo-kun visits her and asks her to stay away from the company due to how dangerous it has become. But Dohee disagrees as she wishes to find the one responsible. After that, he asks Dohee about the man she confessed to, and she replies by saying that he's someone she trusts to protect her. Sometime later, Seo-kun lies down on the sofa, telling Dohee that he will stay up all night to keep watch. However, she refuses to let him do such a thing, letting Seo-kun know that she won't be able to sleep this way. Ultimately, he agrees to leave her alone in the apartment, but makes sure to add his number to her emergency contact list. After he leaves, Dohee receives texts from her friends, who send her articles about the confession she made at the funeral. Realizing that it has been made public, she panics and calls Guwon, asking to meet up. Sometime later, the two of them meet, and this time, she asks Guwon for an explanation behind the rejection. Guwon lets her know that he plans to stay single and questions the reason she's choosing him when there are a lot of guys around. This statement makes her a bit annoyed, and she promises to never marry him even if he were the last person on Earth. After returning home, she adds Guwon to her emergency call list as well, and decides to finally read the letter Cheon-suk left for her. In that letter, Cheon-suk tells Dohee that being a chairwoman is a lonely job and how she would have drowned in the hell of loneliness if it weren't for Dohee. This is exactly why she wishes for Dohee to marry someone who stays by her side to combat this loneliness, and if she fails to find someone, it's better to give this position away. Elsewhere, the thugs who were bullied by Guwon decide to take revenge and find out that the camera footage from when Guwon used his powers is all glitched. The following morning, Guwon dreams of the time when he was human and gets told by Bakyu that it could be because he is more of a human than a demon without his powers. Furthermore, Guwon realizes that he is aging like a normal person now. To combat this, he asks for Dohee's hand to use his powers during the car ride. Curious, she asks the reason he's using his powers, and after finding out that he's using her as a wireless charger to stop aging, she refuses to play along. After showing up at the office, Dohee asks her secretary to plan a blind date for her and decides to check the video footage of Cheon-suk's house to catch the culprit. When Guwon tries heading out, she makes him help her out. During all this, Guwon remembers he can just identify the culprit by using his powers, but before doing so, he figures that Dohee might stop cooperating with him once her task is complete. To make sure this doesn't happen, he tells Dohee to help him out with getting his powers back and to let him recharge by holding her hand all the time. Once she agrees, Guwon tries to identify that person but fails. Wondering if his powers are acting out, he tests it by thinking of an employee, teleporting the two of them to a storage room near the employee. Realizing that they can't just leave since the employees are outside, they are forced to listen to the rumors about their relationships circulating in the office. Ultimately, Guwon tries to grab her hand and accidentally makes a noise, alerting the employees present outside. They make sure to check the source of the sound, but luckily, the two of them manage to teleport to the rooftop. There, Guwon figures that there must be something wrong with the criminal, as his powers involve facial recognition, making Dohee wonder if the criminal got plastic surgery to change his face. Afterward, the employees try to invite Guwon to a team dinner, telling him that it will be a welcome party. On the other hand, the thugs are present at a bar, stressing over the fact that they still haven't found Guwon. Just then, the criminal, dressed as a waiter, approaches them and gives them a letter with information related to Guwon. Later that night, Dohee receives a call from Seo-kun, informing her that Cheon-suk's laptop was wiped clean by someone. He then invites her for dinner to discuss this further, but Guwon refuses, telling Dohee that she already has plans. With that being said, he forcefully takes her to his welcome party in a shabby-looking restaurant, which makes the whole atmosphere a bit awkward. But once everyone starts drinking, Guwon secretly grabs her arm, causing Dohee to almost choke. Simultaneously, one of the girls looks under the table and finds them holding hands, confirming her belief that the rumors are correct. Eventually, one of the employees asks if Guwon doesn't like Dohee, to which he disagrees, telling him that even though he likes pork, that doesn't mean he'll marry a pig. This leaves everyone flabbergasted, and they decide to leave before things get messy. The two of them also get into an argument and go their separate ways. Unluckily, Guwon runs into the thugs from before and starts getting a call from Dohee at the same time. When he tries to pick up her call, one of the thugs kicks him from behind. Knowing that he can't handle them without his powers, he scares them with a newspaper and runs away. But after managing to catch him, they strike Guwon with a baseball, making him bleed. Just then, Dohee somehow finds him and panics after seeing blood dripping down his face. She then takes out a gun with pepper spray inside and makes her way to Guwon while spraying it everywhere. Once he gets a hold of Dohee, Guwon heals his injuries and decides to turn this beating session into a dance performance. With that, he sets the stage and starts fighting the bullies, all while elegantly dancing with Dohee. Ultimately, the performance comes to an end with all the bullies beaten to a pulp and Guwon thinking how he should never fall in love with her. After that, he instantly lets go of her arm and takes her home. Then, Guwon acts coldly towards her and ignores Dohee when she tries calling his name, later noticing his heart beating when thinking about the dance performance. Sometime later, he returns home and wonders if it's because of the symbol, while Dohee, on the other hand, thinks hard about the reason Guwon started acting so differently when he was so attached to her all the time. Ultimately, she decides to give him another chance and heads to his place. There, she runs into Gaeong, and they both point their weapons toward each other, asking who they are. Eventually, Gaeong realizes who Dohee is, but Dohee, on the other hand, has no clue. Nevertheless, Dohee is told by Gaeong to leave, but instead, she heads to Guwon's office. After messing around and even going into his secret room, she tries reading one of his books, only to get stopped by Guwon, who confronts her for going through his stuff. Before long, Gaeong also turns up in the office and starts acting as if she's going out with Guwon. However, he quickly gets annoyed and sends her off, leaving the two of them behind. When asked the reason behind her arrival, Dohee tells him that she was worried. But when Guwon talks rudely to her again, she questions his attitude and gets told by Guwon that he doesn't have a reason to be nice to her. This makes her realize that she had the wrong idea about him and leaves. Elsewhere, Dokyung, Sukman's son, is with his therapist, who calls him a lunatic for messing around, ultimately pissing him off. Meanwhile, his dad is having a meeting with the company shareholders, who let Sukman know that it'll be hard to support him from now on. This prompts him to threaten the shareholders by telling all their wrongdoings and advises them to take his side. At the same time, Dokyung's rage gets the best of him, and he ends the doctor's life by calling him a lunatic. The following day, Guwon drives Dohee to the office, and her changed attitude surprises everyone. One of the employees starts pestering Guwon by asking if he fought with Dohee, causing him to move her to another room. Soon after, a bike rider enters the building and tries approaching Dohee. But just as he's about to touch her, Dohee's secretary hits him from behind, making the guy fall onto the ground. After removing his helmet, they find out that it's actually Bakyu, who wanted to check up on Guwon because he seemed down. Later that day, an official meeting takes place to decide the acting chairman until Dohee completes her task of marriage, and as expected, Sukman wins by voting and is made the acting chairman for now. Once the meeting is over, Dohee tries to leave but gets approached by Suhana, who mocks her for having too many bodyguards, only to get told by Dohee that she's a barking dog who's too scared to bite. Sukmin manages to end their argument, and Dohee congratulates him on becoming the chairman, adding that it'll be brief. On the way out, Suhana does her best to hold a conversation with Guwon but is ignored, and when Seokun tries to talk to him, he receives the same treatment. Following that, Seokun shows Dohee the Mirae Group's financial statement from 2 years ago, informing her of the accounting fraud that took place. She then takes these files to her lawyer, asking if they can bring criminal charges, but gets informed by the lawyer that she will need more proof to make that happen. Afterward, the two of them head to the police department to gain information regarding the criminal, but are told that no significant progress has been made. Lastly, she goes on a blind date with the person she confused with Guwon earlier. That guy starts acting weird and says some pretty cringy stuff, which annoys Guwon to the point that he uses his powers to make the cooked lobster bite his lip. Ultimately, the date ends with the two deciding to get married, which doesn't sit right with Guwon. When he questions her about the reason behind her decision, she explains that the guy is a prosecutor, someone who can help her catch her enemies. Eventually, Guwon gets fed up with Dohee planning her wedding on their way back and decides to catch the criminal on his own. For that, he takes Dohee to meet up with the thug boss and asks him about the criminal. When he tries acting tough, Guwon uses his powers to hurt the thug. But when he starts acting a bit too extreme, enough to end the thug's life, Dohee pulls back her arm, removing Guwon's control over his powers, allowing the thug to run away. Frustrated, she then asks what his problem is, to which Guwon replies by saying that she is the problem. He further adds by saying that his life was peaceful before he met her, but everything has gone downhill ever since. This brings tears to Dohee's eyes, and she decides to end his job as her bodyguard. Nevertheless, she then returns to her apartment and hears a strange sound coming from one of the rooms. Dohee goes to investigate it on her own and gets knocked out by someone, later waking to find herself hanging on the edge of the building, held by a makeshift bedsheet. She begins screaming in terror while the person responsible laughs and cuts the bedsheet. Just as the bedsheet tears, Guwon appears out of nowhere and grabs Dohee's arm, saving her from falling to her death. While the two of them are hanging together, that person appears once again and cuts Guwon's hand, causing both of them to fall. But since he is already holding Dohee's arm, he uses his powers to teleport the two of them to the building's staircase. Realizing that she's safe, Dohee breaks down and starts crying while hugging Guwon. Simultaneously, Seokun arrives and witnesses the two of them hugging each other. Sometime later, all three of them return to her apartment, and Guwon discovers that the electronic lock is broken. She then checks the security camera footage on her phone, and after taking a closer look, they notice that the culprit has the same scratches on his neck as the driver did, making them realize that he must be altering his appearance somehow. Following that, Seokun takes Guwon to a separate room and asks about the stuff that's going on with her. When Guwon asks the reason she wants to know, Seokun reassures him that he's on her side, to which Guwon replies by saying that he's on her side as well. Seokun then goes to talk with Dohee and finds out about the criminal who has been hovering around her, trying to take her life. After hearing all this, Seokun, out of nowhere, suggests they get married. But before she could give him a reply, Guwon also appeared, telling her to marry him instead. However, she leaves both of them hanging, saying that she needs time to think about it. The following day at the office, Bakyu comes to meet up with Guwon and gets informed about the proposal he made. At first, Bakyu gets excited, but after that, he warns Guwon of all the hearts he will be breaking with this decision. Meanwhile, Dohee calls Jungmi to her office, asking about her expertise in tarot card reading. With that, Dohee undergoes a tarot card reading and picks the Wheel of Fortune card. Jungmi explains that this card symbolizes a reunion, and the number 10 written on it means both the end and a new beginning. While that's happening, Seokun visits the office with flowers and hands them to Dohee. Moreover, he explains how his heart dropped when he saw her proposing to Guwon, and it made him realize his feelings for her. Afterward, Seokun meets up with Guwon on the rooftop and tells him to stop toying with Dohee's feelings. Guwon replies by letting him know that he's serious and walks away. Elsewhere, the family members are hosting an event to celebrate the construction of a new family when out of nowhere, Dohee appears, shocking everyone as none of them expected her. She goes to the stage and stands next to Sukmin, reminding him that he's only the acting chairman and letting everyone know that she will be getting married tomorrow. The following day, Dohee makes sure to promote her brand even while wearing her wedding dress. Before long, the family members also arrive and compliment Dohee for looking good. They then sit at their designated table where Suhana asks when Sukmin will break the story. He replies that it's a good day, so they should let Dohee enjoy it for now. Ultimately, Dohee makes an appearance and walks to the stage towards Guwon, who turns out to be the person she chose for her husband. But before any of this, she made sure to give him a premarital contract, stating that both parties will act as a couple in public but will have their boundaries in private. Furthermore, they both shall cooperate to achieve their goals, and the contract shall expire once their goals are reached. Once they have gotten married, the two of them walk down the aisle, and Dohee witnesses Dokyung staring at her in a pretty creepy manner. Following that, a photo shoot takes place in which the two of them are told to kiss each other. Wanting to appear like a real couple in public, they agreed, but just as they were about to kiss, Guwon put his finger between their lips. Dohee then meets up with Seo-kun and lets him know that he will always be a family member she can rely on, while Guwon is someone who is neither a good nor a bad person. That night, Dohee puts a new electronic lock on her door, and after entering her house, Guwon freaks out, thinking that someone broke in. However, Dohee mentions that it's a mess because she was preparing for the marriage and goes to lie on the couch without any worries. This leaves Guwon with the responsibility to clean the house using his powers, but when Dohee starts requesting stuff, he stops. Then, she takes him to the trash can, asking for his help to retrieve the blouse she accidentally threw away. After going through several clothes, she finally manages to find it, and it turns out to be the same one she wore during their dance performance. Eventually, they both finish taking baths and sleep in the same apartment, but in different rooms. That night, Guwon dreams of his human life and sees a girl, but fails to remember her face. The next morning, Dohee suggests looking into Dokyung as he seems suspicious to her. Meanwhile, Dokyung is at his martial arts class, sparring against a student, and while performing the choke, he decides not to let go even when the opponent taps, prompting the teachers to intervene. At the same time, Guwon grabs Dohee's arm and teleports them to the washroom of Dokyung's dojo. Before long, he enters the bathroom, and so does the person he was sparring with. That person mentions that Dokyung might eliminate someone at this rate. Once he's done at the dojo, Dokyung leaves, and the two of them follow his car in a taxi. While following him around, Guwon spots Bakyu having tea with a girl, and no matter how hard he tries to go and investigate, he fails thanks to Dohee's intervention. Dokyung then enters the subway, and once again, the two of them teleport, this time inside a photo booth. From there, they witness Dokyung looking inside a locker and getting disappointed after not finding anything. He then notices someone stalking him and walks toward the photo booth. For some reason, the teleportation ability stops working at that exact moment. To hide their faces, Guwon takes an extreme measure and kisses Dohee for real this time. Dokyung looks inside the photo booth, and after seeing a couple kissing, he leaves. Meanwhile, after a short, awkward moment, they remember their mission of following Dokyung, only to realize that they have lost him. Nevertheless, they then go to his house but decide not to follow Dokyung inside, as it could be very risky. After returning home, Guwon makes sure to test that his powers are working and blames Dohee for being a problem. When she asks if he's blaming it on her, Guwon mentions that it could be a nuisance if his powers act up again at a crucial moment. Annoyed, Dohee questions if their kiss was a nuisance to him, but Guwon fails to give a proper reply and changes the topic. Later that day, Guwon moves all his stuff to her apartment, letting her know that they are his necessities. Annoyed, she tells him to throw away all the useless stuff, or their apartment is going to be cramped, but when he refuses to comply, she kicks him out along with most of his stuff. This leaves him no choice but to return all the stuff to his office, and when she calls him to ask if he's not coming back, Guwon refuses, leaving her frustrated. Following that, Bakyu lets Guwon know that Gaeong has gone missing after hearing about his marriage. Guwon replies by asking Bakyu to cancel her show if she doesn't return. Having no place to go, Guwon decides to make himself comfortable in his car, and at the same time, Seo-kun visits Dohee. He asks if she looked into Guwon properly before marrying him, and shows her a picture from 1,977 inches which Guwon seems to be present. Although she knows the truth, Dohee dismisses it, calling that person Guwon's grandfather, but Seo-kun refuses to buy it. On his way back, he runs into Guwon and suggests grabbing a drink together. At the bar, Seo-kun straight up asks if Guwon is a non-human entity, causing Guwon to nearly choke on his drink. Nonetheless, Guwon reassures Seo-kun that he is as human as one gets, but Seo-kun still finds him suspicious and promises to reveal his secret to the whole world. Elsewhere, Gaeong roams around the streets in anger and accidentally trips. She then remembers her childhood when her old man used to beat her. But that day, just as she was about to receive another beating, Guwon showed up and reminded the old man about his contract expiry. After the old man died, Guwon requested Guwon to take her along, but even though he refused, she decided not to give up and find him one day. Back in the present, a group of guys tries hitting on her, and out of frustration, she ends up slapping one of them. This causes the guy to try to hurt her back, but he gets stopped by Guwon. After taking her back to his office, Guwon tells Bakyu about how his powers suddenly stopped working. Upon hearing this, Bakyu believes that the more human he becomes, the weaker his power gets. That night, the criminal enters Guwon's office and sneaks around the whole place. He even enters the room filled with contracts, and after placing a voice recording device on the roof, he finds the demon manual book that Guwon keeps hidden from everyone. Meanwhile, Guwon sneaks back into the apartment, thinking that Dohee is asleep, and sits on the couch, only to witness her sitting in the dark, waiting for him. He then asks her to let him recharge his powers, and for that, they both end up on the same bed. The next morning, he wakes up and finds Dohee sleeping next to him. Guwon takes this moment to appreciate her beauty, and before long, she also wakes up. Their intimate moment gets interrupted when she receives a call from her secretary, letting her know of the problem they are facing. Turns out the death of Cheon-suk has been blamed on Dohee, and the whole media seems to be talking about it. She then arrives at the office and gets informed by her secretary that they are busy deleting the articles, but there seem to be too many of them. Moreover, she is told that one of her employees overheard her family talking about this plan, making her realize who the culprit is. For the time being, Dohee decides to deal with this situation using Guwon's help and tells Seo-kun to give her some time. He agrees and leaves the room, only to realize that they are nowhere to be seen just moments after. Apparently, they teleported to meet Sukmin and to confront him for what he did. Moreover, Dohee lets him know that Cheon-suk used to say that she gave birth to a devil's spawn. This enrages Sukmin to the point that he points his gun at Dohee. Unbothered, she decides to leave, and as she walks away, Sukmin fires his gun, shooting the pillar right next to her. But instead of taking revenge on the spot, she decides to play the bigger game. Afterward, the two of them pay a visit to the streamer who has been spreading these rumors and question him about his client. Sadly, he has no idea since he was paid in cryptocurrency. Nevertheless, they still want to teach him a lesson and teleport the streamer into a bank vault filled with cash. Just as he starts getting excited, Dohee suggests leaving him there so he can get caught the next day stealing money. Hearing this, he gets scared to the point that he agrees to do anything they ask him to. Afterward, Guwon gets a call from Bakyu, telling him about his missing book. He instantly returns to the office and realizes that it's nowhere to be seen. Not aware of the voice recording device, they continue talking about demons and their powers, which the criminal continues to hear thanks to that device. Following that, they both go to watch Gaeong rehearsing, and her performance reminds Guwon of the girl in her dreams who danced in the same manner. Later, the two of them are about to head out when, unexpectedly, the thugs appear. Thinking that they are here to fight, Guwon decides to run, but stops after finding out that they want him to become their boss. However, he straight up refuses and leaves. With that being said, Guwon goes to watch the show in which Gaeong is going to be performing, and while he is away, Dohee is visited by detectives who put her under arrest for the murder of Cheon-suk. At the same time, Guwon hears about her arrest and rushes out, only to bump into the criminal, who's in a different disguise this time. After that, Guwon realizes that he has been stabbed in the chest by him and falls to the ground. Just when he tries stabbing Guwon again, Bakyu comes and pushes him away. This ruins his mask and reveals his face to Guwon. While he's taken to the hospital, Dohee, who is in police custody, gets informed of what happened. After admitting Guwon to the hospital, the doctor tells Bakyu that his chances of surviving the night are very slim. Just then, Dohee comes running into the hospital, and after entering his room, she places her hand on his arm. But after seeing the power not activate, she realizes that it might be too late and starts crying. Soon after, Guwon finally wakes up and jokes about how funny her crying face looks. Sadly, he doesn't fully heal as his powers start acting up again. Once she makes sure that Guwon is alright, Dohee decides to return to the police, while Gaeong, who's sitting outside, blames Dohee for coming between her and Guwon. The following morning, Guwon experiences a nightmare in which his whole body is burning and wakes up in a panic. Simultaneously, Dohee, who is still at the police station, gets informed that her case has been dropped due to a lack of evidence. Meanwhile, Guwon makes full use of his condition and is busy working Bakyu to his bone when out of nowhere, the thugs from before show up with a bunch of flowers, promising to catch the culprit. However, Guwon once again refuses to become their boss and asks them to stay away from him. After that, Dohee pays him another visit, and he suggests returning home. But when Dohee argues by saying that he needs treatment, Guwon lets her know that being with her is the only treatment he needs. On the other hand, the employees at Dohee's office find out that those who were accusing Dohee earlier are now supporting her due to what happened to Guwon. At the same time, Do-kyung gets a message from the criminal, telling him that Guwon saw his face. Knowing that Guwon might come after him, the criminal gets scared to the point that he starts going crazy. That night, the two of them decide to sleep together once again, and to make sure Guwon gets the powers he needs to recover, Dohee doesn't mind getting even closer. The next day, Guwon asks her to come to the office with him, but when she refuses, he asks her to take the day off and pulls her towards himself. But that doesn't last long, and when he realizes she still wants to go, Guwon decides to go with her. However, the next line of defense turns out to be Bakyu, who also tries to stop him. But seeing that he's not in the mood to listen to anyone, the four of them end up going to the office together. At the same time, the streamer from before admits his mistake and apologizes for spreading rumors about Dohee. At the office, Guwon's return is celebrated by everyone, and to make the occasion more special, they even bring out a cake. But when a few of the confetti streams accidentally catch fire, Guwon remembers the nightmare he had, prompting him to abandon the celebration and leave. In the meantime, Gaeong visits Dohee and tells her to stop taking advantage of Guwon. She further says that he almost died because of her and advises Dohee to fix her mess herself. After that, she runs into Guwon as well and warns him by saying that his loss of power is due to the human emotions he's experiencing because of Dohee. That night, when Guwon falls asleep, Dohee thinks to herself if pushing forward at the expense of someone else is really the right thing to do. The next day, the two of them head to the Mirae Group's meeting and bump into Do-kyung, who tells Guwon to stay away from Dohee, as everyone who sticks close to her dies. Before the board meeting to make Dohee the chairman even starts, she interrupts and announces to withdraw her candidacy. Once the meeting ends, she talks to the family, suggesting they put an end to this war, to which they agree. Shocked, Guwon stops her and asks about the reason behind her decision. Dohee lets him know that he can't be trusted to protect her any longer due to how weak he has become. With that being said, she leaves, and Do-kyung, who is watching their interaction, messages the criminal, telling him that there's something wrong with Guwon's powers. Sometime later, Guwon goes up to Sukun and asks her the real reason she withdrew. When Guwon continues pressing him, Sukun loses his cool and tells Guwon that he's the reason she gave up because she didn't want him to get hurt again. Upon hearing this, Guwon gives her a call and tries searching for her at the apartment. But after not finding her there, he heads to Cheon-suk's garden, where Dohee is currently present. He suggests going back and continuing the fight, asking her to do what's best for her because that's what's best for him. Dohee replies by saying that everyone else in her life died and he could die because of her as well. This prompts Guwon to walk up to Dohee and kiss her. Do you think Guwon will get Dohee to fight back? Comment Demon if you'd like part 2 of this series. As usual, thank you for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next one.